Starting.
House has no gas.
Okay. We're going to call the meeting to order. It's about 6 minutes after 8. We'll go around the table and announce who's here.
Claire Duda.
Mark Kraft.
Ken Holman, Environmental Services Director.
Diane Carlson, Deputy County Administrator.
Constance Meyerdorf, Douglas County Clerk's Office.
Yourself?
Tony Dunn, Administration.
Okay. And since the meeting is all about environmental services, I'm going to turn the agenda over to Ken Paul.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. I have several items on the agenda here today, and I will go through them. I have some PowerPoint slides here just to kind of so you can see a few of the things, since I don't have a handout for you. First item is proposed interlocal agreement with the City of Omaha and Sarpy County for the under the sink special waste facility at 120th and I. We originally entered into this agreement back in, I believe, 2003, 3 or so, and there have been a couple of adjustments to that, amendments to that, I believe. Current agreement expires in 2016, next month, and current agreement really is based on a share of landfill tonnage. For Douglas County, it's 10 cents per ton of material deposited in the landfill. Is forms the basis for that. Sarpy County, it's 30 cents per ton. At the time when that was set up, that was basically an equal share based on the amount of tonnage going into the landfill, and that's why one's 10 and one's 30. So we had roughly 3 times as much stuff going into Pheasant Point as Sarpy had going into their landfill. So that's why that existed. That has not always kept up with the expenses of running it. We had an adjustment a couple of years ago to help catch up with that. The disposal costs have been running more. There have been more materials brought in, and a lot of the materials that are being brought in are more expensive to dispose of. It's not the cheaper things that are being disposed of, which not necessarily bad, because from an environmental standpoint, we're keeping that stuff out of, we're keeping it from being dumped down sinks and various things like that. So that is a good positive thing.
Ken, if I may interrupt,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure so there are only 2 funding partners in under the sink, or that's Sarpy County and Douglas County. The city of Omaha does not put anything in directly.
Well, they're paying. They are providing the employees and all of those things. That is their contribution to
all right.
this.
Okay.
Plus, there are grant funds coming from NDEQ.
All right. Thank you.
That also serves a portion of that.
Okay.
And I'll touch a little bit about that on this last bullet. The new agreement that's being proposed, we're going to do the cost share proposal a little bit differently. One, it's basically a 2-pronged approach, where we would have a share of one city employee that's defined in the agreement, and then the city would also invoice us for actual disposal costs, as opposed to just a set amount that was based on landfill tonnage. So we're hoping that we can kind of steer that a little bit so that it's a little more reflective of the actual disposal costs. And those things will be invoiced to us in arrears, as opposed to still quarterly, but it'll be in arrears.
Does that mean the 10-cent tipping fee will no longer be going there? Is that ending?
Well, that
will this
that
be in
will,
addition to?
No, that will go away per
Okay.
se.
All right.
But there will be a defined amount that we will pay.
Okay.
So it'll actually be a little more consistent,
All right.
as opposed to maybe fluctuating with tonnage. Yes.
Yeah, the 2017 estimated expense, 107,000. What was the 2015 actual expense?
A little over 50. So we're essentially doubling that piece of it. Again, it's reflective of kind of actual costs
This
there.
makes it
That-
more equitable.
We're looking for a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 split here.
Between City of Omaha, Douglas County, Sarpy County.
Right,
Right.
right. That's the goal there. There's 5-year term for this new agreement, 1 5-year potential extension. Kind of the wild card in some of this stuff is LB 1101 that was passed by the legislature this past year sets up a kind of a task force to look at how NDEQ runs some of their grant programs. And one of the programs they'll be looking at is the grant program that helps fund under the sink. So that in combination with some discussions of what we have had and will have with DEQ about how they potentially can get a little more of a defined funding source for these household hazardous waste facilities, because Lincoln's putting one in too, and there are going to be several, I think, now across the state. And what they've done to this point is require the city to put in a grant application every year. And to us, that seems silly. I mean, they're willing to fund this every year, but we've got to keep putting this grant application in. So there's going to be some discussions about how we potentially can do this a little differently. Can there be some earmarked funds? As you may know, there's a $1.25 surcharge on every ton of trash into every landfill in the state. Well, because we generate a fair amount of trash, that $1.25 is significantly more from this landfill as opposed to, say, a landfill in the middle of the state or whatever. So trying to make the argument that we should be able to retain some of that money and have it dedicated to under the sink. So we will see where that argument goes.
Good.
There is a new, relatively new DEQ director within the past year, and so he's getting his feet wet on some things, but we'll have some discussions going forward. Related to that, or before I move on, any other questions on that? Somewhat related, the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan Task Force that was set up as part of the recommendations from the update to the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan a couple of years ago. That group met on April 27th. Some of the discussion items, Commissioner Kraft was in attendance. Some of the discussion included the Omaha Yard Waste Study, kind of what the parameters and scope of that would be. A lot of discussion about automated collection and some of the inherent issues associated with that, and also education outreach and what kind of place this task force is going to play in that discussion. The second item discussed were sanitary improvement districts, the SIDs, and LB 324, which is some legislation that was passed in 2015 that helped to clarify that SIDs were able, as part of that enabling statute, to enter into collection contracts for solid waste. And we've started to see some SIDs start to take advantage of that. One of the things that we did I did a couple of years ago was to send a letter out to SIDs, just kind of getting a sense of where they were at with all this. That was prior to LB 324. The discussion here was about sending a follow-up letter out to those SIDs to kind of assess where they're at now that the enabling language for SIDs is now clarified. So that's another piece, and that's kind of on my plate to regenerate that letter and send it around to the task force for some discussion. LB 1101, I just kind of discussed that in relationship to the Under the Sink program, but that is something that's ongoing. We have a DEQ representative at the meeting, and we're hoping that they continue to come to these task force meetings. And Greg Buell then gave an update on Heartland 2050. There are some solid waste related aspects to that, and we want to make sure we are coordinated and at least having some discussion there, so we're not kind of going down concurrent paths and not talking to each other on that. Any discussion on that?
Sounds good.
Okay. The action items going forward, I guess I already just talked about that, except for the Keep Omaha Beautiful item right here. This is some discussion that also came out of that task force meeting, looking at Keep Omaha Beautiful as a potential partner with the task force to do some education outreach. Primarily, I think at this point, in terms of what the city's doing with their yard waste study and educating citizens about what automated cart system and that type of thing would be. I mentioned the communication with SIEs, and the city also will be providing a report on the yard waste study and kind of getting a better understanding to the task force about what that's going to encompass. And we'll have a get together there on August 10th at 3 p.m. Shifting gears a little bit on the national NPDF, stands for National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. That stormwater permit. State is now looking at proposing a new general permit that would have basically cover all of the entities across the state that have these permits. And had a meeting about a month ago with the new person at NDEQ that administers this. They have some growing pains here with some of this. We provided some input, and I know there's going to be some changes to what they had initially out there in a draft. So we'll kind of see where that goes. Part of the conversation is whether Bennington and or Washington County really gets pulled into a phase 2 permit like we have. I think it's pretty likely that Bennington will. I think there's some kind of discussion still to be had about whether Washington County really fits in some of this permit as it's defined. There's a lot of still rural pieces to Washington County that don't fit very well with the stormwater permit as it's defined right now. So
What does that really mean? I mean, if Bennington has to do a phase 2, I mean, a lot of hassle for Bennington, no doubt. But.
Well, they would have to be complying with all of the particular things that we have been doing for the last 12, 13 years.
Okay.
And it's there's education components, there's construction site, and from our standpoint, the fact that we do all of the building permits for Bennington, we have kind of almost been pushing some of those like construction site runoff control, for
right.
example. Encouraging people to do silt fences, those stuff. We don't really have the authority there. That's Bennington, and they should be doing it just from a this is the right thing to do standpoint. But the reality of the permit is that if the building site is less than an acre, you really don't have to comply with some of those things.
Okay.
So there are some water quality benefits definitely to having Bennington kind of in that mix. I could see Bennington being kind of pretty much synonymous with what we're doing.
And to me, that for a town, that just sounds like a lot of hassle and red tape and paperwork, and I mean, I don't know if they would have the staff or expertise to.
Ralston has the
Right.
same deal, and they've been in it from the get-go.
Okay.
As obviously Bellevue a lot larger, Papillion, La Vista, that.
Right.
Gretna is another one that possibly is going to get pulled into that.
All right, thank you.
So, but that kind of a to be continued situation there. Next item, comprehensive land use development plan. This really, if you don't know, this really forms the basis for zoning. There are enabling statutes that underline the underlying health and safety aspects, public safety aspects for planning and zoning and land use development. And having a comprehensive plan in place then allows you to create zoning regulations and have other regulations that relate to land use. So that's the statutory basis for all that. We last updated the plan in 2006. All of those things have been very, very, very good in terms of controlling what needs to be controlled. It has really helped force development to the perimeters of cities, which is where organized and responsible development ought to occur, as opposed to being leapfrogging out into places where we don't have services. So that's been really well received, and those the basic pieces of the comprehensive plan really are not envisioned to change. What we have to update though by statute are the specific things related to transportation and the other population factors and things like that. Those have to get updated so we have current figures and look at those projections. And then there's also certain things in statute that just need to be updated. A lot of it now will be converted into a GIS format so that a lot of it is electronic, so that all of the land use maps and things like that are all electronic and a lot easier to access.
I've got two things. First, I'd like, for the record, P.J. Morgan has joined us, Commissioner P.J. Morgan, and the RFP for the consultants. What is that going to cost us? Who is the winner of the bidding process, and how many people bid?
Okay. Don't know the answer to any of those questions yet. So,
You don't know now.
okay, well, don't know none. What I do know is that we are finalizing that this month and the next, and we'll put that out on the street. My best estimate is that this is $25,000 or less.
Okay.
And there might be more than one consultant involved.
And
But
this seems to have a lot of overlap with the 2050 plan.
There are going to be elements. There are going to be elements of that will be addressed in this. This is an absolute necessity for the county statutorily in order to have zoning. So I can tell you that MAPPA will be a resource for a lot of information that we can pull there. And what we are doing with the consultant, or excuse me, with the RFP developer right now, we're actually defining in-house what elements that we can update ourselves as opposed to pushing out. And some of the Heartland 2050 data may very well fit right here. It's not that we will ignore it, it's just that we have to have a comprehensive land use plan in place in order for us to be able to do zoning and have those other regulations.
And since we're talking, since I brought up finances, item one, under the sink.
Yep.
The $50,000 or $57,000 increase in the county's portion.
Right.
Do you have that already factored into your budget?
I don't, because that will be in the next budget.
Okay, so.
Because I don't anticipate that additional expense is going to hit until the following year. And if there is a small portion of that, I'm cautiously optimistic that we can make it work within our current budget.
That'll be from the city. When will they start doing that though?
Well, this particular agreement would start in probably in July, next month, this particular agreement.
But they pay it in arrears?
Yeah, part of it would be in arrears, right? So the increase that we see would not happen until sometime in 2017, and because it's quarterly, we are anticipating that we will be okay with the current budgeted amount until the next fiscal year.
Okay. I'm going to ask that after we finish, we get to number 7, then you go back to number 1.
Sure.
PJ.
On the yard waste.
On the,
Under the sink, if financial matters spill into this.
Oh,
They're redoing
Yeah.
that agreement with the city of Sarpy.
I can go back now if you want.
My address would finish. Then
Okay.
we can sneak out of here and don't have to just.
All right, all right. Quickly, a weed control update. LB 1038, I believe that was from this past session. Superintendent Mike Reed wanted to express his thanks to Marcos and the board for their support of that, helping to set that up. And that had to do with some funding issues for weed control, setting up this invasive plant assistance fund. So that's going to be a good thing going forward. The other item here is Phragmites control project in the Platte. The NRDs, the lower south and north and the Papio are all looking to put more money into that program, which will help in a number of ways with endangered species, just recreational activities on the Platte, and also minimizing some of the conveyance issues with ice jams and stuff there. So that will all help there. The other, okay, environmental compliance, just a real quick note here. The landfill gas beneficial use project is going. I think they've gotten a number of kinks worked out of that system, so that seems to be going fairly well. And just finally, Emerald Ash Borer, you may have seen the news this past week, that it has been confirmed in Douglas County now. Basically what that kicks in is a 15-mile kind of zone where treatment is recommended for trees that have significant value to you or for your property and are in good shape. I think, as I've said in the past, we have gone through a fairly systematic removal over the past 7 or 8 years at the health center and other properties where we've taken out ash trees which have been kind of marginal in condition anyway. We have, I would say, one fairly good looking green ash tree at the health center. That is the only tree right now on any of the properties that I would even consider for potential treatments. The city of Omaha, purchasing, released yesterday a bid for contractors to do the treatment, and we tagged on to that. So it's mainly the city of Omaha Parks that's doing it, but we tagged on to it so that we can take advantage of that treatment option.
Nice. Good.
So, any questions on that?
No. Any questions?
Yeah, we will still go ahead with some removal issues. At Fitzone, there are a number of large green ash out there. We've done an assessment of those. I mean, there are some trees out there that potentially could stay, but I have a feeling that if that facility is renovated, a number of them are going to be greatly impacted by the construction activities. So we have to assess it in light of that as well. So, okay. I'm going to go back here. Okay. You want me to just go back
Start
through that
this,
again?
yeah, so
Okay. Basically, current agreement that's been in place for about the last 10 years is going to expire in July 2016. Right now, that is based on a cost share, cost share is based on landfill tonnage. 10 cents per ton, all the tonnage that goes into Pheasant Point forms the basis for what Douglas County contributes to the city of Omaha to help run that facility. Sarpy County's share is 30 cents per ton, and that's because at the time that was set up, we essentially had 3 times as much tonnage going in there as Sarpy. So that makes the 30 cents versus the 10 cents.
and is that still pretty accurate?
No, not really. No, it's now getting it's skewed out of whack a little bit because there's actually been more tonnage coming from Sarpy, and so
Why
they're
wouldn't
paying more.
Why wouldn't they try to change that? Just curious. You know,
We basically, I mean, I know that Sarpy has been kind of because it's a disadvantage to them. It's not a disadvantage to us, it's a disadvantage to Sarpy because they're having to pay more.
oh, I thought they're using more. that they're putting more there.
Well, they are putting more into Sarpy's landfill.
Oh, into
but that-
Sarpy's.
Right, but that
Okay.
also then means that Sarpy's gotta contribute more based on the tonnage to the end of the sink. So, basically, because, well, one of the things that I didn't say earlier is that Sarpy's landfill is almost full. And so they're gonna close pretty soon. So that landfill tonnage basis isn't gonna be there. So they're gonna have to do something. So
when they come over to our landfill?
no, they have a transfer station in place right now, and they will
Sorry,
be.
doesn't want to do anything with us.
They will be, yeah, they kind of unilaterally put that transfer station there, entered into an agreement with a waste company, and they'll be transporting most of that probably to the Butler County landfill.
And why would they want to do that?
Because they don't know landfill, the waste management, not
Waste Connections.
Waste Connection.
Yeah, because they own that landfill. Yeah, that's also kind of, that last option down there with DEQ, that maybe is kind of a peripheral issue. And there's some other issues related to that I'll have discussions with the county board on at a later date.
So this is our agreement with underthesink.org. We've been
Mhm.
coasting along for years, giving them 10
Right.
cents from every ton that goes into our landfill. Now they're saying that's not good enough anymore going forward. We need more money from the county. We need you to start.
Right.
helping with
One
employees
of the
Okay.
things that's happening is that we are getting more materials.
into the
And-
landfill or under the sink?
Into under the sink.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, there's more materials being deposited under the sink, which is a good thing because it keeps it out of the environment. Understand that. A lot of stuff that's coming in now is the stuff that's more expensive to treat and to dispose of. So the disposal costs are going up. So that's why, and we've literally been behind in terms of the operational funds there for that facility. So we've come up with this particular cost share now. It's going to be based on one city employee that will help pay for, and then the actual disposal cost. And this actual disposal cost, that's all going to be billed in arrears, and that's why I think we can hold pat on what we budgeted this year and not show that increase until next year.
The one time I went to drop some stuff off at under the sink, it was closed,
Okay.
because I didn't know the schedule, I hadn't looked it up
Okay.
online. Is there any intention on having it open 5 days a week?
Short answer is I would say no.
Okay. The other thing is, do they take things like DDT?
Pesticides, yes, I believe so.
So they look at every label as coming in for hazardous waste versus things they can take, is that correct?
Yeah, there are a few things that they probably can't take, but
Well,
most
yeah, I
of
was
the.
told they can't take mercury.
Okay, I'm not sure about that, yeah.
Well, see, I have some
Okay.
mercury,
Okay,
that I still have that I'd like to
Okay.
dispose of.
okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, when I closed the store, I found it.
Okay.
Okay. What I really would like to see under the sink do is on the neighborhood cleanup days,
Mhm.
have a mobile unit. Could you
That
imagine
that
how
is
much more?
that has been discussed.
That to me is something we definitely should pursue.
Okay.
It would keep I bet you would triple the amount you get.
Yes.
And that is directly related to that right there.
Yes, I mean, that also would triple.
Okay. Okay. Just so we are, just so we clearly know that when
Well,
we.
I said I would like to see it.
Oh,
I'm saying I'd like to fund it.
Okay.
Funding it is a different.
Yes, yeah, that's.
So, and Commissioner Maury, one of the other items that we talked about earlier before you got here was this last bullet where we are discussing some options with DEQ. Right now, the city of Omaha makes application to DEQ every year for grant funds. And there are grant funds that help pay for the operation here. City of Omaha also puts their share in terms of employees and so on. So we're looking to get to a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 split here among the three entities. But part of the discussion with DEQ is about how can we kind of eliminate this constant annual grant request thing. Can we get a more defined earmarked piece of money coming back from DEQ? Because DEQ is essentially taking part of the money that they get from the $1.25 per ton surcharge at the landfill. That's what funds their program. And so why can we not just identify part of that, and maybe it still has to go through DEQ, but let's not have to go through this grant process all the time. That's just administrative time that isn't really productive, and it's not really contributing to, the disposal and that. And if we can minimize some of the administrative costs, that's just an efficiency here. So there are some other related discussions to the programming stuff, and that was all basically from LB 1101 that was passed this last year that talks about kind of analyzing all of NDQ's programs in this area. So,
BJ, would you like me to go through the items 2, 3, and
It's
4?
okay, I can talk to you later about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
that's all.
It goes pretty fast.
My concern on this funding formula is, I mean, the county, with only 15% or whatever of the population, we're not really contributing as much volume to underthesea.org as the city of Omaha.
Okay.
Especially since the last time we tried to go out, they said, "Oh, you're a farmer? That's a business. We don't do businesses." Well, thank you. And you want funding from the county? And they sent my kids away when accepted. But now we're going to start, if we exceed that 10 cents, I mean, I get as the operator of the landfill, we have a funding stream goes with that, some responsibility goes with that, to take 10 cents of the tipping fee and say this is dedicated to underthesea.org makes sense. But now we're going to be exceeding that and having to dip into more like general fund or, take a little money, not just a portion of the tipping fee. I think that's pretty benevolent of the county. Oh, I'm sure the city of Omaha will be very appreciative. They ought to be. I think it was nice of us to, I mean, when you say 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, we're not contributing 1/3 of the volume.
No.
So for us to pick up 1/3 of the cost, I think is generous, and it may be the right thing to do.
And the third I wanted to point out that the 1/3 is the disposal cost piece of it.
All right.
And not necessarily some of the other stuff.
Okay.
And it is a moving target because of the volumes that kind of go up and down, and
Right.
it's not. And again, we're never sure exactly on how much grant money that's going to come in. So right now, the city has all of the responsibility for staffing it and operating it. So they're absorbing those, those expenses. So we will continue to look at that.
Is it all city people out there on High Street?
Yes, that is.
How many employees do they have? Well,
I want to say there's half a dozen out there.
right.
A lot of what they're doing is the sorting and all packaging and all of that other stuff that they have to do.
And then where does it go from there?
Some of it is reused.
Really?
I mean, there is a restore out there, which is anything that comes in that can be essentially reused. They and repurposed. They will put it in the restore. You can go out there as a resident and pick up. Let's say you need some paint or some stain or something like that. You can go out there and you can get it. And I've done that. You can go out there and I've got some kind of a project and I can get that at no cost. But it repurposes it, and you do that so that you can avoid the disposal cost.
How do you go there and get paint? I mean, do you just decide, hey, whatever color you got, I'll take?
Well, yeah.
They blend them together. There's a whole lot of color choices, I don't think.
Well, there are a number of different. I mean, there's a fair amount of stuff there.
Huh.
Different kinds of stains. So we've gotten stains there, for example, for wood stains.
Okay.
You know, and it's kind of fire.
I'm not sure a lot of citizens even know.
Right.
And is the state pretty busy?
Yeah, there's a fair amount of volume that goes through there. But then the other stuff that can't
Be
go
used.
there, and there's some stuff that truly is, you don't want to have it out there.
Right.
Oil-based paints and some other stuff like that.
Or lead-based or something that
And
somebody added
those
to it.
things are all basically put in drums. And then Sarpy landfill, for example, uses some. They have a machine that then sprays it over and they use it for daily cover. But that's going away. So the alternative there is that the city's gonna actually take some of that stuff and they'll take it to their wastewater treatment plant and they're gonna spread it out and dry it out and then it can be disposed of.
And the DEQ is the
Nebraska
State.
Department of Environmental Quality.
Yeah. Okay.
They
They are-
take a chunk of our money and sometimes they'll give a little bit back.
So,
Okay.
Very
Very
good.
good.
Yeah, there's $1.25 per ton for every ton that goes into the landfill, every landfill in the state. And that $1.25 surcharge goes back to the state and helps fund some of their programs, some of their recycling fund and programs like this. So,
Thank you.
okay. That is all I have, Commissioner.
Whatever you want.
Well, it's rather quick if you want to go over this one.
Okay, the Integrated Solid Waste Management, ISWMP Task Force, they met on April 27th. Commissioner Kraft was in attendance there. Some of the items that we're talking about, the Omaha Yard Waste Study, automated collection in terms of what the city is doing. There's going to be a study with SCS consultants about yard waste and the relative benefits of putting it in the landfill, some of the costs associated with picking it up and so on. The automated collection, the education outreach, there's a lot of questions out there that, you know, how's this gonna impact us going from my own trash can and a recycle bin to an automated cart and where everything's covered. You have a cart for trash and a cart for recyclables. Discussion about SIDs and LB 324. 324 was some legislation that was approved last year, 2015, by the legislature, dealing with clarifying that SIDs and their enabling statute do have the authority to enter into solid waste collection contracts. So, like in my SID, I've got 5 or 6 garbage haulers that come through every week, so God bless that. And that would enable, say, my SID to go and simply contract with one of them, so that we did. So
For all the residents,
For all-
your SID.
Correct. Residents are still, just like in the city of Omaha, you can still contract with your own garbage hauler if you want and not use the city's
Yeah, you just
service.
don't put your trash out on that day.
So,
And
but
you'll-
there's some discussion about that and whether to follow up with the SIDs and kind of get a sense of where they're at. There are certainly some environmental and safety issues in play with that. Obviously, 5 or 6 times 2 garbage trucks going through the neighborhood every week. A lot of truck traffic, safety issue, air pollution issue, and so on. And it's just not very efficient.
I don't know why the people want to spend the extra money.
I don't either.
I mean, you
It
know,
makes logical sense.
Diane, do you have a thought?
Because they pick up beneath me.
They pick what?
You get better
Some of
service.
some
part
of
of
the
it.
companies will pick up more than what other companies pick up.
If you have more.
I mean, they take things that you're not
So
supposed to put in your
fast.
trash, let's put it that way.
Oh, okay.
That's what I've heard.
Okay.
I'm not an SIT, so.
Okay.
AIDS is good. I mean, I think they
Yeah.
will go above and beyond what
Yeah.
a number of the other carriers will.
Yeah. So,
All right.
LB 1101, I mentioned that already.
Yeah.
That is legislation this year that has talked about revamping some of the NDEQ programs, and one of them potentially would impact under the sink, so look at that. And Heartland 2050 is mentioned here simply because Greg Ewell gave a presentation to kind of show the task force where the solid waste issues kind of overlapped into what we're discussing. So that's a good resource.